and every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
Good morning, everyone. Tell, sell, yell. Convince, coerce, control. Do as I say. Many professionals have encountered leaders who rely on some version of these approaches, along with other strategies that are often experienced as ineffective and at times disrespectful. These leadership styles are rooted in outdated assumptions about how to direct and motivate people across diverse work environments. A review of the most common reasons employees leave their organizations consistently reveals a clear pattern. Among the top factors are poor leadership, where individuals feel undervalued and unappreciated, and unhealthy workplace cultures, both of which are frequently the direct result of inadequate leadership practices. Leadership can be defined in many ways. At its core, however, it is fundamentally a relationship, the dynamic between a leader and their team. As with any relationship, certain behaviors either erode trust and create disconnection, or foster a strong sense of connection, psychological safety, and mutual respect. Today, I will focus on how leaders can significantly enhance both team productivity and individual fulfillment. By adopting relationship leadership strategies that prioritize genuine human connection, leaders can cultivate environments grounded in trust, safety, and shared purpose. To bring these concepts to life, I will introduce three leaders, Janice, Bob, and Mark, as we explore the leadership relational trifecta: authenticity, empathy, and vulnerability. Janice, a 45-year-old team lead electrical engineer, oversees a team of 10 engineers whose composition reflects a diverse range of ages, backgrounds, and industry experience, including 7 men and 3 women. Prior to Janice's promotion, the team had been led for over a decade by John, a highly respected and charismatic leader. Janice herself has been a member of the team for 3 years before stepping into her leadership role. Following the company's announcement of her promotion, Janice received widespread congratulations, often accompanied by the remark that she had, quote, big shoes to fill. Approximately 6 months into her new role, Janice and I began working together. While she expressed genuine enthusiasm for her position and its responsibilities, she also shared that she was experiencing difficulty establishing meaningful connections with some members of her team. As we explored her early leadership experience, it became clear that Janice was grappling with defining her own authentic leadership identity, how she wanted her leadership to look, sound, and feel. Transitioning into her first leadership role, succeeding a well-established and charismatic predecessor, and being one of the few women in leadership within the organization contributed to persistent self-doubt. As Janice described it, quote, my imposter syndrome voice was overwhelming and constant. This internal tension manifested in an inconsistent leadership approach, in her own words, felt not like me, leading to frustration for both Janice and her team. At this stage, we began to focus exploration of Janice's authentic leadership brand. Central to this process was identifying her inherent strengths and clarifying her core values, both essential elements in developing authentic leadership. Through this work, Janice gained clarity on the qualities she wanted to consistently embody, including teamwork, curiosity, humor, gratitude, honesty, fairness, perspective, and humility. The next phase involved translating these values into specific observable behaviors that could guide her day-to-day leadership practice. Janice also worked intentionally to quiet the internal, quote, comparison voice that focused on differences between her leadership style and John's. In parallel, she engaged in open dialogue with several other women leaders, fostering mutual support and candid conversations about the unique challenges women have historically faced within that organization. Over time, Janice's leadership approach became more aligned, consistent, and authentic. Team members increasingly sought her out not only for professional guidance, but also as a trusted resource for discussing personal challenges. The overall team dynamic evolved into one that was more relaxed, collaborative, and productive. People have a remarkable ability to sense authenticity. When a leader is perceived as genuine, it fosters connection, trust, and emotional safety, enabling others to be more open and engaged. This shift was reflected in feedback Janice received from a longtime team member who had worked closely with John. Quote, "I didn't think anyone could fill John's shoes, but it's clear you're not trying to. You're wearing your own." Tom, age 36, has built a successful 14-year career as a public high school education teacher. He was recently appointed as the school's newest assistant principal, a role he worked diligently to attain while balancing professional responsibilities with family commitments. Tom expressed genuine enthusiasm for the opportunity to broaden his impact on students' educational experiences. He is widely regarded by colleagues as hardworking, dedicated, and student-centered, and is well-liked among both faculty and students. At the conclusion of his first year in the role, Tom participated in a formal evaluation with his principal. While the majority of the feedback was highly positive, one area emerged as a clear opportunity for growth. Several teachers who report directly to Tom perceived him as unapproachable, not fully present as a listener, and at times unsupportive when responding to the challenges they brought forward. It was at this point that Tom and I began working together. From our initial conversation, it was evident that Tom felt both frustrated and overwhelmed by this aspect of his leadership role. He shared that he sometimes perceived colleagues as overly focused on problems and expecting him to resolve difficult situations. In interactions with upset teachers, Tom often responded by offering explanations or immediate solutions. He expressed surprise that this approach frequently led to increased frustration rather than resolution. Over the course of several coaching sessions, as trust and rapport deepened, Tom acknowledged that he often feels uncertain when faced with strong emotions from others and experiences a sense of urgency to fix the situation. Demonstrating strong self-awareness, he recognized a reoccurring pattern. Initial frustration in response to others' emotions would often evolve into feelings of inadequacy when his responses did not yield the desired outcome. He would leave these interactions feeling discouraged, while also recognizing that his colleagues often left feeling unheard or invalidated. A central focus of our work became the development of empathy as a core leadership skill. Empathy is a powerful behavior that fosters authentic connection. While it is often associated with shared experience, empathy extends beyond that. It involves the ability to understand and appreciate another person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences from their perspective, and to communicate that understanding in a way that conveys genuine care and respect. Tom began developing the capacity to respond more empathically, particularly in emotionally charged situations. This included learning to listen for feelings embedded within others' words, an important skill as individuals often express strong emotions without explicitly naming them. Empathic responses signal to others that they are being heard, validated, and respected for sharing their experiences. Together, we practiced a simple yet effective two-part empathic response framework. First, reflecting what is heard by naming the perceived feeling. So what I hear you say is that you're feeling angry, could be an example. Followed by an invitation to elaborate. Simply, tell me more. This approach helps create and hold a safe space for expression, free of judgment. Neuroscience research supports that when individuals feel heard and validated, their emotional intensity decreases, enabling clearer thinking and more effective problem solving. An addition and often challenging component of empathy involves maintaining appropriate personal boundaries. Effective empathic responses do not require taking responsibility for resolving another person's situation or emotional state. For individuals like Tom, who are naturally compassionate and inclined to help, resisting the urge to fix can feel counterintuitive. Tom continues to identify this as an area of ongoing growth. While he has developed increased ability to limit his instinct to prematurely problem solve, he acknowledges that it can still be activated in the presence of strong emotions. Despite these challenges, Tom reports meaningful progress. He feels more confident and effective in difficult conversations and has received feedback from colleagues that they experience him as a more attentive and supportive listener. In a recent conversation, Tom noted with some humor that colleagues no longer become frustrated when he does not immediately provide solutions. Instead, they seem to value feeling heard and understood. Mark, age 65, is the founder and primary owner of a highly successful family-owned agriculture business. Ownership is now shared with several of his children. While Mark has begun discussing retirement, no formal timeline has been established. He remains deeply proud of building the business from the ground up and is committed to ensuring its continuity across generations. Despite this shared commitment, the family has experienced persistent tension related to leadership transition. Mark's children value his extensive experience and expertise, but feel frustrated by his reluctance to fully share decision-making authority and operational knowledge. Mark, in turn, feels underappreciated and questions whether his children fully grasp the complexity of the business. These dynamics have contributed to reoccurring cycles of defensiveness, frustration, and relational distance on both sides. When we began working together, it became evident that each generation interpreted the same behavior through different lenses. The next generation experienced Mark as withholding, while Mark viewed his actions as necessary to safeguard the integrity of the business and ensure operational continuity. Although he occasionally expressed intent to delegate greater responsibility, inconsistent follow-through reinforced mistrust within the family system. A central focus of our work was the personal and professional meaning of this transition for Mark. While he expressed confidence in his children's capabilities, he also acknowledged deeper uncertainty about letting go, a shifting sense of identity, and a lack of clarity regarding retirement. These internal concerns had not previously been shared with his family. Mark and I explored the concept of vulnerability. Vulnerability is the willingness to openly experience and express uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. It involves allowing oneself to be seen authentically, sharing thoughts, feelings, and experiences without knowing how others will respond, while accepting the possibility of discomfort, rejection, or judgment. For many individuals, vulnerability is avoided due to its association with emotional exposure and perceived risk, and is often misinterpreted, particularly in traditional leadership contexts, as weakness or inadequacy. However, contemporary research and applied practice increasingly demonstrates the opposite. Vulnerability is not a deficit of strength, but rather a meaningful expression of it. In leadership contexts, it serves as a foundation for trust, safety, and authentic connection, fostering openness, honesty, and deeper relational understanding. Mark's initial response to my vulnerability challenge was candid. Men of my generation don't talk like that. Nevertheless, he remained engaged in the process. Over time, we explored what it might look like for him to communicate more openly with his family and how such transparency could shift the tone of previously difficult conversations. Mark began intentionally practicing greater openness and vulnerability with his family. He shared more directly about the anxiety and uncertainty associated with stepping back, while also expressing pride, confidence, and optimism in the next generation's ability to lead the business forward. He also began inviting input on how best to support them in their roles and relationships. While not promising to fundamentally change his ways by tomorrow, he asked for their understanding as he continued to work through the myriad of emotions, the vulnerability of turning over the responsibility of his life's work to the next generation. This shift meaningfully softened family dynamics. His children began to reinterpret earlier interactions with greater empathy, gaining insight into the emotional complexity underlying this transition. While succession discussions continue, the overall tone has shifted toward increased trust, mutual understanding, and a more collaborative engagement across generations. In closing, I want to highlight one final yet critical point regarding the role of authenticity, empathy, and vulnerable as leadership practices and conversational strategies that cultivate trust, emotional connection, and genuine appreciation. Oxytocin, a hormone and neuropeptide, plays a central role in social bonding, trust, and emotional connection. Often referred to as the bonding hormone, it is released during positive interpersonal interactions and experiences of psychological safety, supporting both relational trust and emotional regulation. Emerging research suggests that when leaders consistently demonstrate person centered behaviors such as authenticity, empathy, and vulnerability, they may help stimulate oxytocin responses in others. This, in turn, enhances perceptions of genuineness, approachability, and trustworthiness. In this context, these three leadership and relational superpowers represent powerful pathways for strengthening connection, deepening trust, and reinforcing leadership credibility through the authentic expression of one's humanity. I thank you, and I wish you a wonderful day.
Together we are global speakers talk.